we've heard a lot about the things that you can do with medication, but there's a lot of disabilities that you can't, there's nothing you can do other than cope. At the age of 6 and really the age of 2, I was diagnosed with dyslexia and ADD at the same time. I've been fighting mainly dyslexia my entire life. It's just one of those things, there's no cure, it never gets better. I mean, there's small increments. I learned to read, which was a nice thing. I learned to read a little better, but I'm 23 and I'm still probably half as good at reading, half as good as writing as most people my age. So, as a result, I've had to learn how to benefit myself with this problem. For example, I'm a very poor writer. I do not write well, I do not spell well, I do not punctuate well. But I can write an 8-page paper in an hour. And it takes me 7 hours to edit it. And still, it's not very good. But the benefits, in a lot of ways, far outweigh the negatives. The negatives, for me, there's two things. I can't read well, and I can't write well. And my memory's not very good. But that's it. I'm pretty much able to do everything else better or as well as everyone else I know. I enjoy leadership positions for two reasons. One, I like being in charge. Second, it puts me in a position where I don't have to read or write. I can divvy that off. And a lot of people would prefer that task, just write up the report on what we discussed. Real easy. It takes them 20 minutes. It would take me 3 hours. So there's no point for me even attempting to do that. So as a result, I intentionally put myself in the more difficult positions. I seek out more difficult positions because for me, they're easier. I'm very good at conceptualizing things. I can be told kind of an idea, and I'll get it immediately, and then I can explain it to everyone else. But I couldn't probably spell the idea for the life of me. I spend, 20 hours reading a 200-page book, but I have to read the book one time, and I never have to read it again. My ability to understand what I read, not necessarily memorize it. I'm not going to know the people's names, the dates, anything like that, but I will understand every part of that book perfectly. The concepts, the discussions, everything like that. But it took me forever to read it. But one of the advantages, I only have to read it once. Same thing when people tell me things. I might not remember the dates or the times, but I'll remember everything about the concept they discussed. So I can apply that to other things. I don't have to spend nearly as much time learning things along those lines. I spend a lot of my time trying to understand people. I enjoy understanding people. I find that that's a benefit that I've gained from dyslexia. Mainly because it's kind of encouraged me not to focus on that. I'm not very good at reading or writing, so I don't try to communicate those ways. I try to communicate by talking to people. I've developed a love for public speaking. I enjoy discussing anything with people. Something else I just even noticed today, one of the things that everyone else in this line has been doing is they've been looking down at their note card. I can't look down at my note card and read it fast enough to get it. So I can't actually look down the note card to read what's on it and get back to you in a timely manner. But at the same time, I like public speaking. So I don't mind just going on about things that most people would feel uncomfortable about. To go back to what people were talking about earlier about the extra time, the accommodations that people with learning disabilities and ADD receive. One of the ways I kind of feel that we can rationalize why we should get it is that I don't read very well. I read slowly. I don't write very well. It takes me a long time. But as a result, I have built up so many strengths because if I was just to be average, most people's goal in life is to kind of be not noticed, to be average. If I was to be average and have dyslexia, I'd be way below average. So I have to force myself to be better than everyone else in other areas because that's where my value lies. That's who I am. I'm not the guy who can't read or write very well. I'm the guy who, talks too much, or the guy who, likes public speaking, or is always in charge of a meeting. That's where the strength comes from. The old quote is, what does not kill you makes you stronger. Well, imagine every day fighting something that could potentially overwhelm you. Every day. So every day you're becoming stronger. You're becoming a better person. You understand who you are better than anyone else. At the age of 18, I talked to a lot of college professors. I talked to a lot of, just people who I had gotten to know, and they all told me, it was right before I was graduating, that I had a better idea of myself than anyone else that they had talked to over the years. And it was solely because I've had to learn who I was. I had to learn my strengths. I had to fight my weaknesses. And this is what makes me unique. Every student with a learning disability is unique. That is what makes them different. That's why we use the term learning difference. Because while they have these very distinct disadvantages, they have very distinct advantages. They just don't apply to academics very much. They might not do very well in tests because, my memory's not good. So if you give me a list of 40 things to remember, and all it is a word in a sentence that I have to memorize that goes right after it, I can't do that. But as a result, I do much better in upper level classes. The 3,000 and 4,000 level classes for me are by far the simplest and the easiest. It's those introductory classes that all my friends love because, all they have to do is memorize 40 words in the definitions and they can get an A. I can't do very well in those. But the 3,000 and 4,000 level classes where there's papers and there's essay questions, I excel in, because all that is learning the concepts and applying them. So I've always kind of laughed because that might say something about our academics, that the guy who doesn't memorize things very well can't do very well at your beginning classes, but thrives in your upper level classes. But at the end of the day, we have to kind of ask ourselves, what is it that makes students with learning disabilities different? Because it's not so much what makes them not as good at tests, or they might be inattentive or distractible. They're always looking around in class. I actually doodle all through class, and I look around all through class. But that's how I actually pay attention, because that gives me just enough distraction that I can actually pay attention to what the teacher's saying, regardless of how boring they might be or not be. I've always found that people become stronger by anything that they have to overcome. People who are in the military and, get, lose a leg. They aren't very happy immediately afterwards. But within 6 weeks to 6 months afterwards, they always seem to just come out of their shell and realize that this is not what makes them them. The fact that they don't have a leg doesn't matter, because they can overcome it. And that's what students with learning disabilities have over everyone else. They focus on what they're good at, and that's what learning disability students do. And they have that advantage because from day one, they get into college and they know who they are. They might not know what they want to do, they might not know what they want to be, but they do know who they are. And at the end of the day, that's what makes them special, and that's what makes them unique.